Another beautiful day in July. It was frosty this morning, but it didn't go below 2 degrees, which was really good. I just wanted to have a talk to you. I get a lot of messages, people asking questions and things like that they don't really want to put on Facebook because they feel that it may sound stupid whatsoever. I've got a couple of notes because I didn't want to leave anything out today. So, information overload. You'll be receiving emails and text messages and on Messenger. Often it's just shit anyway, it's not true, it hasn't been confirmed and things like that, but it's all overwhelming. When we created Global Non-Compliant Australia, the idea was that it would be rejecting the Great Reset, putting like-minded people into Parliament. The name actually came from Elena up at Cairns. That's what gave me the idea. It was about becoming more self-reliant and minimising whatever you do with the major corporations and minimising government influence. So what I'm going to suggest that you do is you create your own group that you put as private, and you might call it Elena's Archive, Deefa's Archive, Harry's Archive, Trevor's Archive, or whatever you want. You might call it Where I Keep My Stash. It doesn't matter what you call it, you keep it private. That way you copy anything that you want to watch later or that you do like. So if we put something up on BlackRock and you don't have time now, but later, or something on the Great Reset that you feel will be interesting, you copy that to your Elena's Archive or whatever. That's what I do. I keep it in a separate place, and then when I go through and I think, boy, that's a piece of shit, I get rid of it. But it's really worth doing. It makes it easy for you to find things. And what you can do, you can even give it a bit of order by putting in it hash Great Reset, hash BlackRock, hash food storage, hash great recipes or whatever. But that will save you a lot of time by having that private group. Facebook's not going to be showing people that it's there. It can only be done if you give someone permission to go to that link. They won't even be able to find it. So you create your own group. That's easy. I had a young lady, well, she's a little bit over 40, that's young for me. She was telling me that she was watching Global one day, flicking through, and she saw something about granny flats. And it was something she didn't realise, that granny flats in New South Wales, you don't need council planning. You don't need council planning in New South Wales. I believe this is not the case in other states. Her father had died 3 years ago, and she was living with her partner, and they were having a financial struggle like everyone, and she was noticing everything's going up and life was just going against her every day. And that would be the same for many, like fuel's a good example. I was going to take the bike out today, go for a ride over to Gunnedah, but put my back out and it keeps going out, and it was out when I woke up this morning, so I thought I'd have a chat to you instead. And she was talking to her mother about it, and she actually showed it on her laptop to her mum, who lives at the end of their town. And the father had great gardens, and he had chicken pen and everything, and it was all not used since he passed away. So she talked to her mum, and her mum said, that would be good, I'd prefer you living down with me, I'd like having someone nearby. And the daughter said she's going to put chickens and do the gardens up and become more self-sufficient. And the mum said, I miss the sound of the chickens and watching their antics. Definitely you can build in the backyard, there's not a problem. She's got a quote on building and it's going to go ahead, and it was $70-something thousand. So there are other alternatives. I'll put some of the people that are living in vans and doing their vans up, and I get a lot of flack from it, saying these people are just running away. But this is the lifestyle these people have decided that they like, and they travel as much as they can. They stay at areas where it costs you nothing to stay, that still have toilets and showers and things like that. Many of them are doing it for enjoyment, others are doing it to save up for property, which I'm going to talk about property later. But there are all different alternatives. So have a look at that. When my daughter buys property, she likes it to have a lane. This has actually got a lane, but people have blocked it off, so you can't drive. But so you can put on the block another house at the other end, like granny flat, and keep it separate. Financial, what can I say? It's important to eliminate or reduce debt. Easy for me to say, easy for you to say, but it's the practical things. I've put a couple of things on our group to tell people what other people are doing, demonstrating how they're saving money. And one of them I really loved. It was a young lass, very young, not in her 40s, probably in her 20s or 30s, and she was suggesting we go back to what our mum and dads did and when I first got married, and we had an envelope for electricity, an envelope for fun, an envelope for the gas bill, etc., etc., and paid for everything in cash. And she was suggesting you need to not get the money out of the bank that day, get it out the next day, take it out, put it in the envelopes, and when you go to pay cash, you're actually feeling it disappear rather than the card. Now this one, Harry's given me the idea. I don't know, many people have been to Harry's place because he's very generous and he's well known in the Patriot movement. His backyard is like going to a resort where you pay a lot of money for. Harry's created his own resort in his own backyard. He could just stay there and wouldn't need to go on holidays. I know he does a lot of camping trips around Australia and things like that, but he's done what I think's perfect, to have your holiday in your own backyard. I don't really want to leave my backyard, but it's not a holiday resort like Harry's, Larry's my neighbour, like Harry's. And also make sure that part of the yard's a food forest. You need to be reliant. Peter Richer the other day was sent me a message and say you really need to be focusing on your gardens. Well, we've got 16 garden beds here and we're going to build another 4. So we're really heavy on self-reliance. Okay, it's talking about self-reliant as much as possible. People keep saying self-sufficiency or self-reliant as the same thing, but it's not. Self-reliant is that you can be more rely more on yourself than the government, having to rely on the government or friends, family, etc. Self-sufficiency might be including your parents in part, or friends in part of developing your self-sufficiency. For example, we dehydrate food, and I was at one of our the Australia project in Tamworth the other day, and I was talking to some people there, and they saying they live on a balcony. They live in a unit with a balcony, and I said what we can do is loan you a dehydrator, because the problem was going to be storage. They could grow things on the veranda, but they had no no space to store them. Dehydration's very well worth looking at. Jennifer's out there dehydrating again today. The other thing is we've started in Tamworth where heirloom seeds are the most important. If you try to grow hybrid seeds, because or save them, more important, when you save them, it may take what it came from one seed, or what it was pollinated with another seed, or etc. So you're not getting what you really like. So if you get an heirloom seed, it's going to have all the characteristics of the food. So what we're doing, we've ordered a catalogue, and we'll buy online, but we've ordered a catalogue for it's easier because a lot of our people are over the 70s and they don't use computers, let alone phones. So we're going to buy heirloom seeds, and like the lady Caroline, who lives on a small unit on the veranda, she may only want a few seeds to tomato seeds. Well, she'll get her proportion. She can just say, well, I want 4 seeds. Someone else can say I want 20 seeds. Another person say I have 200 seeds, etc. And we're going to share the cost, and it's cheaper freight, the whole lot. And you don't have to buy more seeds than you need. And then you'll be able to save your own seeds. One of the most important things Jennifer and I've learnt is to hang out with like-minded people. But you might call them your tribe, but that tribe's not necessarily going to be always 100% right or 100% fit for you, and other tribes won't either. So it's about enjoying and not taking as gospel what the discussions in your tribe or your group, whatever you want to call it. In our TAP Tamworth, the Australia Project Tamworth, we've got a food co-op where you can go and buy food cheaply, or you can take everyone takes their food in there, and people can buy the food, and the money goes into the co-op to buy from our local farmers more veggies and fruit, etc. And if someone hasn't got any money, they're having a hard time, then it's just given to them. Schooling, they're looking for a building in Tamworth so that they can have a parallel schooling. It's similar to home schooling, but they're not going to be affected, or they can't be closed down because the government will have no control over providing a curriculum. Great idea, because the contract is between the parents and those teachers. So parents won't have teachers teaching them all this woke garbage that we don't want our children to do. Now, I tried to educate people, and I've put 3 videos up about parallel societies. A lot of you are already living in parallel societies. Parallel societies doesn't mean that everything's parallel. So that education would be parallel, not buying our fruit, veggies from corporations, just going out to the farm. That's parallel. It's minimising your contact with corporations and minimising your contact with the government and their control. Like I put up today about Bunnings and Kmart, and them, they have facial recognition. Every time you go into the store, they know who you are. It's all connected. And by you entering the store, because it's a condition of entry, you're consenting to it. You've got no choice there unless you go somewhere else. And do you really need to go and buy Kmart? There's always the op shops. There's garage sales. This is part of the parallel society. You're already in the parallel society if you're belief is in alternative media and you're following that rather than the mainstream media. So you need to find reliable alternative media like C Media, Triple Tap, Redacted, and we still need to keep an eye on MSM to see, which is mainstream media, to see what's going on. But I prefer to use like GB for Britain, Sky News in Australia. Now, every news is biased, so I just need to understand what's going on. So I don't really believe everything, but I do like Sky News because it's opinions, and that mostly the opinions I would agree with. It's important now, as it's all going to shit with electricity, that you have a blackout kit. Now, many of you've got camping stoves and things like that, but two things that I did put something up on blackout kits, and not going to go over it, but two of the things that I found most important is a power bank, the small power banks that you can charge your iPhone and iPad, and you use a USB, so that if there is blackouts, at least you can use your phone for emergency or for whatever and be recharging it at the same time. They're very cheap, some organisations give them away, but you can get a really good quality one with 3 USB ports on it for less than $30. The other thing is a USB rechargeable lantern, which can be recharged through the power bank again. I've always had power banks. Most people in business already have them because you're on the phone so much and it's running down. You grab your power bank, plug it in, and you can continue. Purchasing property. Property is getting so expensive, and but there are alternatives. A number of people now are willing to finance you, especially in the country areas. Finance you. So this is like parallel again. You're not going through the banks and all that garbage. You're going to be financed by the owner of the land. It's a good way of getting a block of land in the country. You make a deal, and it would be normally interest free, so you can do it that way through finance. I've got a property in Finlay that I was going to put on the market, but to be fair, we decided that we would put it on the market as lease to buy or rent to buy. We're going to give the offer first to the people living there, and then we'll give it to others. So the property is $140,000, and it's got a garage and carports and sheds and etc. on it. Now, what we're willing to do is someone give us a deposit of $3,000, and we'll commit that will be theirs for the price of $140,000. And they pay rent at the moment around the 130 mark, and what we will suggest they do is we keep the rent the same, however they pay $200, $300 a week rent, and that goes into their trust account in 5 years they'll be able to have a good deposit for the house. So they're actually renting to buy to pay it off, and in 5 years time they will be able to afford to go to the bank. The house, if it goes up in price, it's still the same. If it went down in price, it's still the same, but they would have a contract to get out. It's all contractual. So you can buy a property, in this case, for $140,000, guarantee that it's not going to increase in price. You can live in the property and still pay your normal rent. You pay a deposit of around $3 to $4 grand, whatever you can afford, because Normally if you're saving up for a deposit, that is the killer, and all the money that you've got you'll be putting into your trust account to reduce the amount that you would owe on the house to buy it. And when in 5 years time you'd take all that money plus your $3,000 deposit, and you could go to the bank and get the whatever else you needed. So there are alternatives. So, not that I believe that you need to buy a property, and if you're having trouble with your property, what you paying and what you can do is rent your property out to someone else, and then you move and rent in somewhere else, maybe further out than where that property is situated, and let someone else start paying your property off to get it down, and you'd be getting more on rent probably than you're paying off on the property. You still, as you'll be renting somewhere cheaper, you can still put the balance over the rent on your property loan. There's so many alternatives. But thanks for putting up with me again today. I really do care about you, and anything we do put up, Jennifer or I, it's because we can see that it should get your juices flowing and start thinking and creating your own alternatives. And don't worry about all these other people. What we need to worry about is ourselves. So like Harry put in one of the things, he doesn't have to worry about these bug out bags, and if things goes bad, he's got a camper. If the power goes out, he's already got the stoves, and he's already got the lights, etc. and that. The other thing you should be doing is learn about dehydrating. Excellent. You can learn about canning, it's a bit more to it, but you need to be buying at least 3 months worth of food so that you've got it, and that would be like baked beans, canned type things. Thanks again, and hope to talk to you soon.